Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sampson, Michael McDonald, Veterans in Politics. Today we have Lydia Dominguez. She's an Air Force veteran, and she's also an author of a book called Don't Turn Your Back, Guidelines to Domestic Violence. But before we get talking with our guests, Mike, you have any rants?
Traffic's been crazy with the heat, so yeah, yeah. No, there's been a lot of events in summer. And just telling everybody to be safe out there, at the pool and making sure that you don't light anything on fire. It's getting really dry out there. So other than that, we're glad that you're here, Lydia. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Folks, this program was brought to you by Ron Quince. He's a congressional candidate running for District Number 1, and Stephanie Phillips running for United States Senate. And before we get to our guests, I just want to just let folks know that sometimes you just gotta go to yoga or take a hot bath with Epsom salt in there and just relax your mind and calm down, because things will just catch up to you, and life is always moving. Sometimes you yourself have to slow down, because if you don't slow down, you're gonna trip over your own self. So people just need to just slow down and take it easy, and that way they could get on with life and just breathe. I tell my daughter all the time, I said, babe, you got to breathe. She doesn't breathe. She's always, and then she gets all crazy on me. And I'm like, babe, you got to breathe. So that's what I'm putting out to you folks out there. Slow down. The work's still going to be there. And, I got to take my own advice as well. The work's still going to be there. But if you keep rushing and don't slow down, you're going to put yourself in a hospital. And then you're going to be out for a week or two. And then you're going to have that much more work to do. So just take 24 hours just to clear your mind, and things will be okay. Because you know what? We're all human. We're not machines, okay? Although some people might think they are, like Mike McDonald over there. He thought he was a machine, but I had to tell him he's not. But slow down and everything will be okay. All right? All right.
Very nice.
That was my rant.
That's good. That was a good rant.
That was a motivational.
Yeah. So, Lydia, Ms. Dominguez, tell us about yourself. ¿Habla español?
Sí.
¿Quita mucho?
Mucho.
Oh, shit. Oh, we need to go to a Spanish restaurant today.
Let's go.
All right.
We
went to a restaurant one time.
We did.
Was that Mexican?
We've been, La Patrona.
Yeah, with Burke Hall. Remember him?
Yeah, that's
Remember
right.
Burke Hall, your old friend?
Yeah.
Just talk to him.
I haven't seen him in a while. Yeah.
I guess he's around.
So I'm an Air Force veteran. I have 10 years in the Air Force. I moved around a little bit.
Is it that civilian branch of the military we talking about?
No, it is the smarter half. But yeah, I served in the Air Force, and had a great time in the Air Force. During my time, I went to a few deployments, and
where'd you go?
I went to Hawaii and Guam.
Oh, Guam, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Might as well. You're in Hawaii. Might as well go to Guam.
Might as well keep going, yeah.
My brother was stationed there. He loved it.
Oh, Guam?
You bowl as much as you want. And I guess that's the deepest trenches, the water around there. And it's really dangerous.
It's very dangerous. Yeah, the ocean is. The mission was incredibly awesome. We went for Operation Valor. And it was a great time. We got to see all the different kinds of aircrafts from all the different kinds of services. And it was an amazing time.
Yeah, my brother did the B-52s up there or something like that. He loved it. He was in freezing Minot, North Dakota, and then went over to Guam.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference. Yeah. No, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed my time during the service. And during that time, I was married for 10 years. I had 2 kids. I had my first son I got pregnant at 15, had him at 16. And then my next son, I had him at 19.
Where's your daddy at?
My dad passed away when I was 12.
Oh,
yeah.
Where's your mama at?
My mom, she just passed away a year ago.
Oh my God, I'm so
sorry.
I am not batting very good today. Strike it out.
Yeah, it was really hard when my dad passed away. So it seemed like I lost both parents.
15.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's a little bit too young?
It was very young. Yes. I was not thinking straight. He was my next door neighbor.
How convenient is that?
Girl next door.
Yeah, I was the girl next door. And then we had my next son when I was 19. So
Even that's young.
Very young, yes, very young. Got married.
Okay.
He joined the Air Force.
You got them all out the way.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're done, right?
I'm open.
Oh,
I still feel very young.
You are.
Yeah.
But you got over the hurdles. I mean, you got the
Mhm.
2 kids out the way. You're supposed to be done. Anybody come knocking on your door and say, "Hey, let's get you pregnant," you're not tell them go away.
Well, yeah, I would, but no, it would if there was like a right person, a right time frame, I'd definitely be open.
All righty then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That window is shutting very quickly though.
Well, I would nail it down if I was you. Put some crazy glue on that window.
But so in that 10 years of marriage, it didn't start off, violent and aggressive. It started off very loving and it really did evolve into something darker and deeper over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And once I finally got divorced and moved out here to Las Vegas.
Was that a hassle?
To move out here?
The divorce.
The divorce was a very long proceeding. Yeah, it was actually completed after 2.5 years. But even then, once I finished, I had all these notes that I had written to myself for over the time in all these journals. And so I was able to, during COVID, life stopped and I sat down and wrote this book. And then
From Post-it notes.
From journals, and maybe Post-it notes stuck on the journals. Yeah. And just things that I had learned over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down and wrote it and published it in August of 2021.
So what made you wanted to get in the Air Force?
In the Air Force, first my spouse had joined in the Air Force, my ex-spouse.
Oh, you married him before?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And then once.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very young.
How old is he?
He was about the same age. He's about a few months younger than me, but we were about the same age.
So there's no statute. No, what do they call it? Statutory rape in there?
You want the babysitter?
Oh, no. No. But
I want to hear about how you got pregnant at 15. Mm-hmm. You had the baby, 15 or 16?
16, yeah.
How is that? How does that look like?
I can
Describe
tell you,
that.
It's scary. Every single person in your life, your teachers, the administrators, every human in your life that knew you were pregnant was encouraging you to get an abortion. Mm-hmm. They were encouraging me to seek other options. They were telling me my life was over. They were telling me you don't know how hard it's going to be. They were telling me all of these awful things,
were they
discouraging
right?
things.
Right? Was it hard?
Yeah, it was hard. And, I didn't think it was going to be easy. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I knew this was a life and I could feel my baby in my stomach. And I knew this is something I had instinctually to protect it. And even after hearing just all of the awful things that people say about kids and your life is over, that's it.
What's your child's name?
Aiden.
Yeah. Boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And
17 now.
Yeah, he's 17 now.
Is he watching?
He doesn't have social media, so
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. I do have 2 boys. Yeah. And so through that,
Is he a good kid?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's an amazing kid. And I looking back.
He's gonna make a difference in the world?
I hope so. I really do.
I'm trying to
I'm trying to make someone who's going to be successful in the community and just a well-adjusted human being. Okay. And I would never regret, I just don't regret my decisions in keeping him and not putting him up for adoption or not getting an abortion.
Were you pressured to put your child up for adoption?
Oh yeah. From the moment my mom and my sister found out I was pregnant till he was born.
Your mom and your sister was pushing you to go that way?
Yeah.
Were they suggesting that they would adopt your child? Or were they saying that give your child to a stranger?
Give my child to a stranger, adopt
Really? Your mom and sister said that to you?
Yeah. They also had offered to adopt him, once he was a little older, once he was born, they were offered to adopt him.
Okay.
And then my sister had said before, when she found I was pregnant.
How old is your sister from you?
She's 21 years older than me.
Holy crapo!
Yeah.
21 years older than you?
Yes.
So she could be your mama.
She was like a second mom. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old was mom when mom passed?
My mom was 74.
She had you late in life, huh? Like
Yeah.
40
How old was she when she had you?
About 47, I think.
Dang.
The math works out.
Yeah.
Wow.
How old was daddy?
He was 10 years older than her. I think he was 56
shit.
though when I was born.
Daddy was like moving up the. How many siblings? I'm for one to talk about daddies. Right? How old? Oh man, I lost my train of thought.
I wonder how you did it, like going like after having your two babies, then joining the Air Force, or had the baby, then join the Air Force.
Yeah.
How does that look? I mean, that must have been
It
going
was
to basic training.
very difficult.
You'd have to have a lot of family support or people to help.
I
watch
did,
you.
yeah. So one, it was very difficult because my second son was about 2 years old when I left, and I went to basic training. I had 2 years old, and I was going to be leaving for 8.5 weeks of basic training and then 6 weeks of technical training.
Yeah.
And so it's a long time in kid years, right?
What'd you do in the Air Force?
I was a personnelist, so I was a 3 Foxtrot.
Okay.
And so I would consider like admin or human resources.
And they made sure to work around with the kids and stuff. And
oh no, the military doesn't.
Yeah.
So what I had my mom fly out to help with my ex, as my ex was in the military at the time.
Yeah.
And so he, could do everything. So she came out to help him while I was at basic training.
Yeah.
And she would tell me that my son would wait by the door and just like wait for me, because I had been a stay-at-home mom for him like his entire life. So it was very hard to go through that separation period.
What about your husband's or your ex-husband's family? His parents?
Help?
Did they try to help? Or?
No, they were not. They were not involved.
Hell, they were the damn neighbors.
Yeah.
He had could have been a neighborly thing to do.
So by the time we had joined, we moved to California. He PCS'd, so we weren't in Texas anymore. And
were they supportive? The parents.
I have maybe there was a loose term of supportive. They were cheering us on from Texas.
If my neighbor kid comes over and gets my 15-year-old pregnant, somebody's gonna know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody gonna get the ass whooped.
It takes a village neighborhood to raise.
And if I can't beat the little 15-year-old, I got my 15-year-old daughter pregnant, I'm gonna kick that daddy's ass.
Yeah.
For raising his kid that way.
Yeah. I think it was not having a male role model in the household was really difficult, and it's very important as we know now as adults.
For your kids or for him?
For that whole situation at the time, for me to have an adult role model in the house, for him to have an active male role model in the house.
Because both your parents were together at the time too?
Yeah, they were both together. They'd been married. I think they were married 25 years when he passed. And so he passed from lung cancer.
Smoker?
No, he was a construction worker. So it was
asbestos and all that?
Yeah, mesothelioma.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so it was very sudden.
Lawsuit?
No.
You should. There was a big one out there from
I was 12, so my mom should have done a lot of things.
Jumped on it.
But yeah, there's a lot of things I didn't even
know
about.
How old are you now?
I'm 33.
Oh, she's a little baby.
Really young. Yep. I would never think you had two kids. They're taller than you, right?
Yeah, they are. They're taller than me. So, and they're very protective and loving and kind human beings.
Well, you ran through life pretty quick, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So it was like a fast version of life during when I was 15 and going through high school. And I figured everything out. I went and got like WIC and, food stamps and all that stuff. I got the state to help me with daycare costs. I found a daycare that was close to the school. I found rides because I didn't have a car to get to my baby to daycare and get to high school. Life wasn't easy.
I bet.
And it was, and I graduated on time. I didn't have to go to any other school or process.
Did you go to college or did you go right into the Air Force?
I actually went straight to college. I told my ex, like, hey, I'm going to college. This baby isn't stopping me. I'm taking him with me. I found a college that had a dorm and housing and furniture in the housing. And
Good for you.
I went down there.
Dorms with your baby.
It was a family dorm. It was a family housing unit.
Her mind is way older than her body.
I know. That's a lot of experience to go through.
Yeah, I made phone calls. I figured it out. Like even at the time, I didn't have a computer. I didn't have internet at home. I had to look everything up at the school library. I didn't even have a smartphone. I think I had like a Razor phone.
It was a flip phone. Like that.
No, it was like a Razor. It was like the sliding one.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Remember those big ones you used to take in your car? It looked like a big brick. And it was a car phone.
Yeah, those kind.
I remember those phones. But so, Ms. Dominguez, I really like the texture of this book.
Thank you.
It's nice. Did you pick the texture out?
I did, yes.
Did you do that texture for a reason?
I also am a very feely person.
That's why you got the 2 kids at 15 and 19.
I don't like the glossiness. I like the matted feel. It feels more personable. Every little feature in this book I decided on, from the cover to everything. I was involved in all of the process. I did not have a ghostwriter. I wrote every word. I had a few editors.
You didn't use, what's that thing called? The new GT?
ChatGPT.
No, I didn't use any ChatGPT.
Would have wrote the whole book for
which
you.
would have been very helpful.
Domestic violence on me. Knows everything. Right. So I see your quote. This book is basically about domestic violence, correct?
Yes, it's a girlfriend's guide.
A girlfriend's
survivor guide to domestic violence. Because it's not supposed to be the end all, be all for it. It's supposed to be like you talking to your best friend and them telling you, hey, you need to do this, and this is the way to get it out. But this is from a friend who's been through it. This is from a friend who made mistakes and wants you to learn from those mistakes.
Because you have a question on the back of your book is, are you prepared to stop going back to your abusive spouse? What do you mean by that?
You have to be mentally prepared to stop going back. You have to be mentally prepared to
How does that look like?
Enduring your new life.
How does that look like?
It's not easy. It's definitely difficult. You're going to feel like a terrible mom, a terrible spouse. There are times you're going to be very down. Why should
you feel terrible? He's the one that's being the abusive person.
Yeah, but there's ways of people manipulate you into thinking you can't do this on your own. You don't have enough money. You're crazy. You're making things up. Like, it's very manipulative over years of someone telling you. So
you have 10 years of marriage. You had your first child with this guy at 15, 16 years old. The other one at 19 years old. He's your age. So you're both young and dumb.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree.
Both of you,
yeah.
Right?
You both live together the whole time and going back and forth with
yes.
deployments and all that. That's got to be...
You're both in the Air Force.
So, yeah, I joined.
How does that even look like, both of you being in the Air Force and going on deployments?
Yeah.
So, how does that look like?
It was basically...
With the 2 kids.
Yeah, I would take on the brunt of the children. So I had to figure out if I was leaving, I would have to figure out their schedule and make sure that they were taken care of.
He wasn't working it out with you?
Sometimes he would. There was a point towards the end of the relationship where he had gotten out or he had taken into the reserves. And so he was not full time. So he was able to care for them more. But the majority of the time, if I was going TDY, if I was going to training, I had to figure out daycare or anything that was going on with them. I had to figure it out.
Do you think that you're a veteran? And thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you for your support.
Are you
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Are you service connected disabled vet?
I am.
And was that? What percentage?
I'm not ready to disclose that out loud, but I am.
You want to do it in silent? You want to whisper in my ear?
I could whisper to you later. But I am receiving a VA disability pension.
Okay, so you're married 10 years. When did you wrote this book based on your relationship with your ex, right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, when does in the 10 years, when did this abuse start? And what tools did you have to combat it?
Sure.
Then it's just a 3-part question. And what inspired you? What was the turning point that you said that, you know what, I'm gonna write this book?
Sure. So it started when we moved out. So when I had moved out to college, and I told him basically, hey, I'm leaving. You're coming with me or not? I'm going to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Sul Ross State University in Alpine, Texas. Small little
And you were
college
living in
state.
Texas at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I moved away 4 hours away from home,
Mm-hmm.
moved out with no car
Mm-hmm.
to go to this college, and I could walk to the daycare. I got myself a
You
job.
got a hungry attitude, huh? Nobody's
I
not going
do.
to tell you what the hell to do. You make up your mind to do something.
I don't
You
even
just-
need the internet.
You don't need nobody.
I don't even need the internet. No.
She don't need no man. She don't need a man. Just I want to put that out there. All right, go ahead.
But I'm available.
Come on. You don't want to say that too loud.
Just putting it out there. Just
Woo, she don't need no man, but she available.
So,
Please.
I wasn't gonna let this baby, my love of my life, little baby, get in the way of me pursuing a career.
Right.
I graduated high school on time. I figured it out. I figured a job. I figured housing. I figured daycare.
You're not really 33, are you? You're not really 33. You don't talk to me like a 33-year-old.
I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
I'm not the same person I was when I started in this journey.
Right.
At all.
Okay.
And I was very naive with the whole thing. The abuse started when we moved in together. Once we had.
How old were you?
You don't know nobody until you live with them. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You guys were living together when you...
Yeah, so I graduated from high school at 17, and so I was about 17, 18 when we moved in
You
together.
still lived next to each other, so you just walked over?
No, so he had moved out a few months after I'd gotten pregnant. His family moved to another house.
Oh,
Yeah.
like after that year?
That year, yeah.
They're trying to distance themselves from her.
Yeah, pretty much.
I know we're just throwing a whole bunch of questions, and some of the
Sure.
questions are not even being answered before we got into the next one. And it's all right. We got PTSD over here.
Intrigued.
So, did the parent of
Dude.
your ex, when you were that young, did they help financially take care of your child?
No,
They didn't even help financially?
no. If I asked
You're
for
15 years old.
Yeah.
They have a 15-year-old son. They should be financially obligated.
that is correct, but
I mean, these grandparents, they want rights, but hell, this is
It was
one
a-
right here.
it was a difficult situation. His parents were they were here in this country
Illegally?
semi-legally, and like I think they had started the process after several years. They had completed the process.
Where they from?
They didn't speak English. They were from Mexico.
Okay.
They didn't speak any English.
They bought a house?
They were able to buy a house.
Oh my God, Donald Trump. Now I know what you're talking about.
But they took this as, that's not our problem. That is your problem, son. And so
He's 15 years old.
he still had to go through high school.
They're responsible until he's 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So he had, let's see it. He had to go, and he found a job. He was a busboy, and he found a job, and he was working. He helped me in that way. There was a couple times where I was frustrated with my family life, and I moved away from home, and I moved into their house. And it was very difficult for me to even get a ride to school. So I moved back in with my family because I couldn't get a ride to school. I was struggling to even get to school. But your initial question was when the abuse had started. He wasn't an awful person. When I met him, when we would hang out together, hours and hours of talking, it wasn't until we finally came together into this small little place where someone had to do the dishes, someone had to mop, the baby needs to be changed, the baby needs to eat.
It's called life.
That's when life stressors
happens.
got in the way. Yeah. And it was when two young kids didn't know how to handle life, didn't know how to handle relationships, came together, and we reacted to how our family life reacted. So he did things that he had learned from his family, and I did things that I had learned from my family. And so it was very awful and difficult. The police were called, there were police reports. He actually had a night in jail from an incident that had happened when we first moved in. And even at that time,
You called the cops? No.
I did.
You did?
Yeah, I did, because I was fearful for my son's life and for
Your
mine.
son.
My son. I had one at the time when that had
Why
happened.
were you fearful for your son's life?
Because of the situation that had happened.
What happened?
So it's
This is a tell-all
I know it's
interview.
I know, and it's like so it was over like a diaper change. It was very
Drugs,
dumb.
alcohol involved or no?
No, it was over a diaper change. It was like arguing over, hey, I've been changing diapers. Can you change his diaper? And he didn't want to do it, and then so I started doing it, and he got mad that I didn't wait for him. It was.
Doesn't he know that diaper rash is a lot worse than just changing the dog on diaper?
I know that, but he hadn't been taking care of the baby this entire time until we had moved in together. So baby life was new to him, right? Because he had lived with his parents.
Was he the only child?
No, he had at the time. Well, actually, now he has like 5 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, so once that had happened, even when he went to jail, I felt bad. I went through all of the emotions of like regret, and
Did you feel bad? What put him in jail?
His actions.
Did he yell at you? Did he touch you? Did he
No,
hit you?
yeah. So at the diaper change thing, he had grabbed me by both arms. He had you grabbed me, shook me with the baby in my arms, shook me, threw me on the door. Started punching walls. Started screaming at me, calling me derogatory names, saying that I was worthless.
So there was verbal abuse.
Yeah, and at that
Physical
point,
abuse.
it had been verbal until that point.
Mm-hmm.
It had just escalated so fast.
Was there financial abuse?
It wasn't until later.
Did he like take your keys, your phone, stuff
Yeah,
like that? That's
yeah,
also
yeah.
Domestic violence. You do
It
know that, right?
was, I do, yeah. Not at that time, but there was that type of abuse later on.
Do you regret calling the cops afterwards, or do you think that you didn't have the right tools to navigate that? Like him and you being so young, like, in relationships, emotions get high and you don't know to call a timeout or to go into a different room or to leave the situation for a little bit. Like, what do you, and when you get the legal system involved, that's when paper trails happen. That's when it can make things really messy. But do you regret calling the police, or do you wish that you guys would have had those tools, or both of you guys have been taught on how to deal with those?
Yeah. Do I regret calling the police? No. Did I wish I had the tools to handle everything? Sure, I could quarterback on myself. I didn't learn any of those tools from my family, and he didn't learn any from his family. So we were kind of navigating these waters of a relationship together. But there is a study that I mentioned in my book that basically this happens so often that women recant their stories, that many states across the country have changed the laws so they continue to prosecute domestic violence without the victim's statement, because the victim is highly likely to change their story. And so many states have changed the laws for that.
In this domestic violence advocates and all this other stuff now that because a lot of they get pressured to not pursue charges because the state will pick it up and persecute that person and cause all these, especially when you're married or have children together, it makes things very convoluted. But I don't know. I believe our whole domestic violence system needs to be overhauled, because there's so, especially here in Nevada, it's really crazy. But so in that moment, you guys didn't you just learned whatever your parents, you saw, he probably saw his parents reacting that way and he reacted the same, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's
So
one behavior.
I'll go back to the study. So it had, essentially they had done a study in this prison that, I forget the amount of inmates they did, but so they had, they looked at domestic violence abuse victims. And so when the partner was incarcerated, they would look at their phone calls. And so essentially an action would happen, an event would happen, person would go to jail, and then the victim or survivor would come to the jail and like have some sort of interaction. And so that's what the study looked at. And every single instance of that had this almost the exact same profile, where the victim is strong at the beginning and says, no, you did this, so this is why you're here. And then the abuser partner would say, well, if you hadn't have done X, then I wouldn't have done this. So if you hadn't have talk back to me, if you hadn't kept the house clean, if you kept the baby quiet, then I get stressed from the baby.
Action, reaction.
Then it's your fault, And so every single instance of that occurring, that partner would manipulate that victim into thinking, feeling bad for him and feeling like, oh, he's like, look at me, I'm in jail, feel bad for me. And then they would essentially, after that, make a plan to try to get him out or try to lessen the charge. And that is across the state, that the US, that it's happening. And it's almost the same layout that occurs. And I can honestly say that occurred with me. When something would happen, it was terrible. I felt in danger. And then I would be sucked into this cycle.
Something, Ms. Dominguez, that everybody's responsible for their own actions.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what is tossed at them, is how you respond to it. That's what makes the difference. Because, for example, okay, I give you a good one. I'm driving down the freeway and somebody cut me off the road and then flipped me off, right? And they're on their phone, so they're already breaking the law, right? So they weren't paying attention, but they make it look like it was my fault, right? By cutting me off and flipping me off, and they're on the phone.
Why'd you do that?
Now I'm in charge of me, right? I'm in charge of me. So I could do one of two things. I could just ignore it, because after this red light, I'll never see that person again, right?
Absolutely.
And I could just go on my merry way. Or I could choose to go with the anger and at the red light, put my car in park and get out of my vehicle. And now what did I just do? Now I'm escalating the situation, right? Yeah. So the reason why I bring that up is because it doesn't matter what life tosses at us. It's up to us to decide how we're going to respond to it. We could respond in anger, or we could respond in some type of empathetic way and say, hey, maybe their life is a lot worse. I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe they heard something on the phone and, pissed somebody off or whatever it is. So basically what I'm saying, I could respond one way or I could respond another way. It doesn't matter what life throws at you. It's the response. That's what makes the difference. So in your situation, changing the baby diapers or whatever, the sink is dirty with dishes, you could respond like, clean up that fucking clean up the kitchen, right? Yeah. Or you could respond, hey babe, I know that you have a hard day and I know there's a lot of dishes in there, I'm going to take a walk. Could you help out getting those dishes done? I'm going to go for an hour, take a walk. You want me to bring you back a coffee or something while I'm coming back, And you can respond that way. So it's the response. That's what makes the difference. Yeah. And everybody is responsible for themselves.
Yes.
Because you did X, Y, and Z, that doesn't mean I need to come at you aggressively. Yeah. Right? I chose to come at you aggressively, right? Yes. You didn't choose that for me. You just did X, Y, and Z, right? So that's all I'm saying. It's the response.
And I throughout this course, it has changed me, right? And I write about this in my book that you are in charge of your own emotions and reactions. And you're not going to find closure, and you're not going to get that apology. You're not going to get what you want out of another person. They'll never be able to give it to you. What you can do is control yourself. And I think it's absolutely correct. It's
I know. It's like this one guy, he came over my house and he hung my door upside down. Now, I could respond. Rumor. I could be, you hung my door upside down, you idiot. Or I could respond like, I'll get somebody to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. To change it around, no big deal. Or I could respond, you know what? Hey, it looks unusual. I'm just going to leave it there. I like it.
Is it the front door?
No, it's one of the bedrooms.
Okay.
So it's the response.
Yes.
It's the response.
Yes.
And everybody's want to blame you because you didn't do this. You didn't change the baby's diaper. Yeah. You didn't clean up the kitchen. So that's giving me the entitlement to be aggressive and to be angry towards you. No, that's not an entitlement.
Steve, what do they say when you say you're pointing one finger, you got three fingers pointing back?
At least you didn't do this scissor hand thing to me.
What's
You could do.
Oh, like
there
that?
you go. Yeah.
So basically, it doesn't matter what life throws at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you respond to what's being tossed at
I love
you.
that. I wish we could teach, I'm teaching my boys that.
It took me a lot of years to learn that.
It does. It takes it into your, once you're become an adult, you experience terrible things, right? It sucks that you have to experience these things, but until you've learned how to manage your own
anger,
yourself, your feelings,
Yeah.
how can you get into a relationship with another person? And, the schools, people, they put so much emphasis on, starting a family and sex and marriage. But we don't talk about like, hey, why don't you, get in charge of your own feelings before you get into a relationship with someone else?
Yeah.
And I wish we would focus more on that.
I used to tell
we
people,
don't.
that they made me angry, right? You made me angry.
Mm.
You did this. You know how I'll get, and you triggered me. You know my trigger, right?
Yeah.
And it's always you.
Mm.
And then I'm starting to realize, why am I allowing this person to have so much control over my emotions?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in control of my emotions. Why am I allowing this person to mess my day up for me to be all frustrated and unhappy? And now what happens is you got mad at this person and you're still frustrated. So anybody else that comes along, you're going to get mad at them too.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like an innocent bystander. Damn, this guy's
the term is to be like, come home and kick the dog, right? That's like the common term.
No, that's a vet bill. I don't come home and kick no dog. I don't want a vet bill. No, I love my dogs.
The term is like, you come home and beat up on the poor person that, with an innocent bystander that didn't need to be abused, but they got abused because you were mad over something else.
Right.
And that's kind of what I would do to myself. I would tell myself, he's mad and he's coming home and beating up on me. But you know what? He's mad because of work. He's stressed out, money, whatever. And I would make those excuses for him also throughout the course.
Why'd you do that?
Because we didn't have these skills. I would try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I had a lot of wishful thinking. I wanted him to be the father I knew he could be. I wanted him to be the man I knew he could be. And every time he did that, I would try to make an excuse for him. Every time he did something, I would make up an excuse for him.
You know what? Because we deal with a lot of litigants in family court. And I had one litigant, and she got tired of the abuse. Okay. She got out of the relationship, right? And she was so upset and revengeful and spiteful because of what her ex put her through. She got a couple guys to go beat him up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she paid a couple guys to go beat him up at a bar.
Wow.
And they videotaped it. And that made her happy, and she felt a whole lot better. I'm not saying to do that, folks. Wow. I'm just saying that these things do happen.
That's a lot. That's a lot of, I talk about that too. Like not having, don't have revenge. You don't want to be that person in anyone's life talking about my ex. You don't ever want to be that person that's like constantly bringing up your ex and constantly bitter and sour over.
Because
we all know somebody
that
like
just
that.
messes with your heart and how you feel, right?
You're carrying it with you. You're carrying this giant suitcase of pain and suffering for no reason. You're in control of your feelings. You're never going to get that feeling that you're going to have something, that apology from him. You're never going to have that understanding from that person that they hurt you. Yeah. You're going to have to move on with your life.
Right.
And you need to take out your anger and your revenge on something else. I encouraged a lot of exercising, kickboxing,
yoga,
prayer, yoga. I actually did. Have you heard of float therapy? I included float therapy. It's about it's kind of a sensory deprivation. So you get into a bath. It's like 12 inches, 11 inches of water, thousands of pounds of Epsom salt. You get in the tank and there's no light, there's no sound, and you just float. And your mind you're so away from all sensories that your mind is able to like calm down.
Yes.
And so you're talking well, for me, I was
It's kind of like
talking.
my PSA at the beginning of the show when I was talking about people just need to take time out for themselves.
Yes.
Calm down and breathe. And it's the same thing. In relationships, that's what you got to do. You get mad at your significant other, just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go hit the bag. Go do don't go for a drive because people just drive crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you don't drive crazy, because I have some people go for a drive and they drive perfectly normal. And then some people go for a drive and they look for a victim. Who's going to cut me off right now because I'm pissed off, right?
Yeah,
Or they wreck their car.
awful.
Like that's a really big. Yeah, I've seen that. But it's emotional security. There's emotional intelligence that people acquire over years of dealing with people or experience. So like learning those emotional, the emotional triggers and knowing about recognizing it within and becoming aware of that within yourself or in that relationship. And it takes time, and you're so young and you don't know about, how your response to certain things is.
Her mind is not young though.
Huh? Yeah, no, I mean, obviously not. He raised 2 kids. It looks like
still raising them.
young. Yeah, I mean, it's just like you've learned a lot, and I'm sure, yeah, you would justify that person's behavior, but the stresses of that role, he just didn't have that emotional maturity level, and same thing. I don't think you're still developing and you're still learning about yourself. And it really is about what response. And I mean, I've done some marriage counseling and things like that. And I would have never known those tools if I didn't go through that. And you didn't learn, those weren't learned behaviors, growing up. So, I mean, obviously you went through a lot going through your relationship. I mean, what was the turning point where you're like, I'm done with this, or I've learned, or did you guys go to counseling at all? Did you try to work things out especially after going to jail for that relationship? I'm sure that must have strained things.
He went to jail.
He did. He went to jail. Yeah. So we did try counseling throughout the marriage. There were about 7 times where I left, and I was like, I'm done.
The 7th time was that?
The 7th time. 7th was the charm.
Did the VA help? Like, did they have marriage counseling? Did they offer, or the church? I know the church has some really good programs. We tried counseling through
military services. We tried counseling through our church.
Mm-hmm.
There were times where I wanted counseling and he didn't, or he wanted counseling and I didn't. It was a roller coaster of emotions and trying and not trying and just saying let's just quit, like this is getting bad, or let's keep trying for the kids.
Yeah, I think if you have children with somebody, you should do whatever you can to make that relationship work. And if you can't, do your best to be good co-parents. I read in your book, you said don't be friends with your ex. I was like, wow, I understand that the emotions are so high and like, maybe if he does this or maybe if she does that, it'll change. But being able to, you should just, when you have kids in common, you're tied for life. You have to do what's best for your children and be able to make sure that you're raising them and seeing that, my mom and dad don't hate each other. They're doing the best to love each other and to love us, even if they're apart. Yeah. And I think that's what we have a disconnect in this world is like, we have such high emotions, like, I hate that person. And that's like Steve was talking last time, we mentioned there's such a thin line between love and hate. And there's also a big adage, that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, right? Well, there's a beginning. The first part of that is heaven weeps like no other when love turned to hate. So you used to have a bunch of angels hanging around watching your relationship, and they're weeping, and they see that you have brought this love together. You had a child, 2 became 1, and then there's this disconnect of where you hate one another, which you brought children that you loved each other at one point and brought children into the world, and then you have that disconnect. And I don't think anybody should ever have that level of hate. I know that things can happen, and it's just really sad, especially when you have children in common and you're soul tied or you're tied for life. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just that disconnect. That's what I was wondering. Like, when did you have that point of no return and know that after so many different instances, or how was it for you?
Well, first I want to premise with I harbor no hate for my ex. I harbor no revenge or anger towards what had happened. It happened. I have worked through it in that regards. No marriage, just like no divorce, is the same. There are people that get married and get divorced and can remain friends. And the marriage was not abusive and was not manipulative. And just 2 people fell out of love and got a divorce. Now, when you have abuse enter this realm, I had initially, I tried so many different things. Every time I went back, those 7 times, I had to change, kind of like what I tried to be friends. I tried to go back. I tried to be friendly. And it's very difficult to keep that person in your life as a friend when they are trying specifically to abuse you or manipulate you. Yeah. And so I, in my book, had personally decided to just stay neighborly to your ex. Do not be his friend. He is not your friend. He will take advantage of you. When there is abuse and violence involved, they will use every little bit that you have to use that against you.
So how does that look in a co-parenting relationship? If you, I mean, you're going to be friendly, do your best to be friends or friendly. I mean, I don't know if you could be, besties and call each other else, but in order to raise these children together, there should be that level of emotional intelligence and be able to know that, hey, even though we're apart, we could still be cordial to each other. We could be friendly. We could be.
I called it neighborly. I called it neighborly. I didn't call it friendly.
Well, he was your neighbor too.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now we're breaking it down.
Just say it.
So just to be, neighborly. Hey, here, there's 2 different terms that I've heard using gray rock method or yellow rock method. Gray rock method is a term coined by different domestic violence counselors that essentially say something has happened with your ex or your partner. They're texting you, they're calling you, something's going on. What you do is the gray method, which is you give 0 reaction. You give no reaction, so that way they understand from here on out they're not going to get a reaction out of you. The yellow method is essentially giving a reaction, but making it very bland. So them saying, hey, I'm upset over this. And you're going, I understand you're upset. However, or I understand you're upset. That can be upsetting. And then just kind of like cutting it off like that. Not acknowledging that what they said, but kind of not...
feeding into
not expanding it or giving any more leeway into more conversation, just cutting the conversation very short and brief. And that's why I said you can't be friends, because if you give them a tiny inch, and again, not all divorces are the same, but if you give that abusive partner that tiny inch, they will use it against you to pull you in or to use it against you in court. And
it's that those emotions, because they're so high, or you don't know how to respond to those emotions of
Well, yeah, you still have this feeling of like these are our kids. I didn't make these kids by myself. We're in a marriage. We loved each other at one point. There are feelings there. There are lots of feelings there. There are lots of sadness and remorse and love and anger and everything mixed in the pot. And so when you have a partner that's abusive and coming to you and saying, baby, I love you. I want to get back with you. I want to be a father to our kids. It pulls you back in. It pulls you back. It makes you forget all of the awful things that happened. And it pulls you back into this disgusting relationship for another 3 or 4 years until something else happens. And then you go through the cycle all over again. And so like through all this, the breaking point for me was, I had so many breaking points.
There's that point of like no return, and that's so cool. You've studied up on all these different methods, and you probably heard about the Dr. Gottman studies and stuff like that, right?
No, I'm not.
You should read the Gottman was a professor, I think it was at Stanford, and he would observe couples, and he could predict whether these couples would remain together with like 90% accuracy. Most of it was like there's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships. And he was, one thing is tells, like if a partner asks you for like, oh, hey, look at that, honey. If they don't respond to your tells, that's one of the things that they could determine whether that relationship would work. And it was a really good study. There's a lot of stuff like on YouTube that this guy studied relationships. That's all he did. And if anybody wants to know more about it, I'd definitely recommend those Gottman studies, because there's a whole psychology behind it, and knowing how to look for a partner and looking into a relationship and whether that relationship would work. Because if you think about it, that would be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Whether, hey, within the first, a couple days, whether this relationship is going to go somewhere and it's going to be awesome or it's going to fail, and if I had if you had that foresight, would you ever get in that relationship in the first place? You know what I mean?
It's hard because like I don't want to get like in that psychology of like, oh, if this person doesn't match up with my test, then they're not compatible.
There are some people that don't. I mean, maybe it's...
I know, and there's like the horoscope thing too.
Yeah,
where people
I don't know. Yeah.
I know, and it's very tricky because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah.
and I know it's terrible because I've already done that. But
at
the same time, I feel like a relationship should grow and
Yeah.
learning. I might even write the second book about dating, but
there you go.
even kind of like learning the red flags and
Yeah.
identifying those red flags for yourself. Like they might not be a red flag for everybody, but learning those red flags.
Well, you could probably learn those. I believe a lot of those behaviors are learned. I mean, some are just acquired, but or you become that intelligence over experience. But you can learn those behaviors, like those tells, or be able to feed the love language. I really love that book. I wish everybody would read that one for relationships. But
that one's a good one.
Oh, you've so, and not be able to speak that love to that person. But what I'm asking is after 7 times, you said you had those discounts. What was that point of no return? Like, okay, this is it. I'm done. We're going to do our best to just be co-parents, because you guys still have a good co-parenting relationship, right?
Is he paying child support?
Oh wow, there was like 3 questions in there. Okay, so there. So you said the
disconnect.
So where I had my breaking point was towards the end of this relationship. I had realized he had been planning for 6 to maybe 8, maybe even a year of separating. So he had done certain things over the course of a year that made me believe that he was possibly planning this separation and using me.
Change bank account?
Change bank accounts, get a P.O. box, file bankruptcy on his debt.
Take you off his life insurance.
Take me off of everything. He had essentially, I was working full time in the military and he had gone into a reserve position. So he was using my ability to pay for the bills to get something else and save up his money so he could utilize it to move out. He had, like I said, a P.O. box, filing for bankruptcy, hiring an attorney for bankruptcy, living an entirely different life to the point where he had already hired an attorney, had a plan out for that attorney, and I was about to be served the next day. And he came into my room or our room and said, I've been living a lie. I don't love you. And
whoa! Wait, he's like living a lie, like coming out of the closet, or
no? Like that whole year,
okay.
That whole year he had been living. I feel like it was a year. It might have been 6 months or 8 months, but
okay.
He had done certain things throughout the year that I recognized later could have been a plan. It could have been a long-term plan.
So you know what? It wasn't
emotionally disconnected.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it was you. It just sounded like it was just all him. To say to you, I've been living a lie. I don't love you.
So the end of it, So it was. So yeah, I wish I could say.
I
wish I could say I bravely.
Did that hurt?
Yeah, absolutely. To know that a person comes in every single day for a year, is acting great, is acting like a best father in the world, and telling you, I want to live the rest of my life with you.
This is after he beat you and and all that.
Yeah, and he's acting great. He's acting like the best person,
so
father,
it's a form
spouse.
of manipulation.
Oh yeah, and he comes in and completely just.
Well, you know what? You needed to hear that. You really did, because apparently you were just being tugged one direction after the other.
Yeah.
So you really needed that complete closure.
I want to say I wish I was.
You should have just heard it a lot earlier.
I wish I was that brave person that walked out and was like, I'm done. I walked out. But I walked out so many times. It wasn't until he discarded me, took all our money, took everything, but
that
then,
I was
left to pick up everything.
The first time is shame on them. Second time is shame on you. But you did it.
What's the 7th time?
You did another 5 more times after that.
Did you go to jail multiple? Were the cops called out multiple times too?
Multiple times. He received an Article 15 for spousal abuse, for child abuse. There was so many charges that I
child abuse
for an Article 15 in the military.
CPT, child protective, CPA, the word
CPS.
They would not
CPS,
do anything.
They
didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything.
No. Technically, because we lived on federal property, we lived on base, so they said it's a
the military
problem.
doesn't have their own CPS.
No. they had a family advocacy, and they went through a board. And at the end of the board, they determined he was
an asshole.
It's like very technical, as you know, but the term was he was indicated to have committed spousal abuse, and then a different charge was indicated to have child abuse.
So do you dishonorably discharge that?
He was not.
No?
Hold on a second. I know adultery doesn't exist in the civilian world because it's not recognized in family court. But adultery does exist in the military world. Was there any signs of adultery, or was he charged with that? Or
so adultery,
was he faithful to you completely?
So from the attorneys and the JAG and ACC, which is basically the other side of attorneys in the military. From my understanding, even if you had video proof, even if you had a video camera in your bedroom that you captured adultery, it would still be very difficult to pursue that without an additional charge. So an additional charge would have to be something like this person.
Unbecoming. This is a charge.
Nope. Not if they're not an officer.
Okay.
And so if this person was committing fraud, financial fraud with the Air Force, that is like a huge charge.
Let me
and they could add adultery, then that would be it.
Let me stop you right there. Maybe the Air Force don't recognize unbecoming, but the Marine Corps certainly do. Unbecoming of a Marine, anything outside of this box, you're unbecoming.
Yeah.
You know, and cheating on your wife is unbecoming.
Yeah. Yeah. And it from what I was told, it was very hard to prove, and it was very unlikely they would pursue an adultery charge without an additional charge on top of that.
So was he committing adultery during your relationship?
There was a few times, not every time. There was a few times that he was. No. Never.
You're faithful 100%.
Absolutely. Never.
Because you're so damn busy.
Well,
you have time
I don't have time for like kids and work.
But now she's available.
I mean, even in my deployments, I was very faithful, and I never enacted in any of the, going out and doing anything crazy. And I just had too many things to worry about,
So let me ask you something. This book that you wrote, right?
I feel like there were so many other questions that I haven't answered that
Probably.
I missed.
Probably. We have to go back. We have to go back to the tape. But this book that you wrote, what are you trying? 20 something, 21, 25 pages. What are you trying to accomplish? Well, what do you want the reader to understand after they finish this book? You know what?
I want them to know that they're not alone. I want them to know they're worthy of love. And they're going to get through this. And this book isn't the all, I know there's a million books that are 1,000 pages long. This book is very brief, to the point of like how to get through this where you're not going to turn back. This isn't supposed to go through all the ins and outs of the law, all the ins and outs of exercise and getting through PTSD of domestic violence. This book
Did you suffer that?
I did. Yeah, but
was there strangulation involved?
This book
is meant to. Involved?
There was a lot of abuse. Yes. This book was meant to be a survival guide to help you map out how to get through things and to not have to depend on your spouse to go back.
Was there a time that your ex was harming you? That if you had the means to take him out, would you have taken that action?
Put her on the spot.
Are you asking me about committed violence?
Shit, if I had my 45 in my purse, I would have shot him till the clip was empty. You kidding me?
Maybe offline we can talk, but there was, I'm not perfect. I was angry. There was a lot of times I was angry. There was a lot of times
you're defending yourself.
I'll give you an example.
Was there a time that you felt that your life was in danger?
I will give you an example. There was a lot of times where this is how usually the fight would go. I would be given ultimatums. I would be told, hey, go do this or go do that. And so it's either take care of the kids or some kind of chore. He would treat me like that.
You punching the clock when you got home?
So he would say things like either you take care of the kids on this thing or do some chore. So at that time it was my son had homework, and so he was like, go do his either go help him with his homework or go wash the dishes. And at first every time if I picked the wrong thing, he would just tell me to go do the other thing. So no matter what I picked, if it was the wrong thing.
Sounds like your ex is a dictator.
Yeah, it was very, yeah. So I said, I'll help him with his homework. And he said, no, you go do the dishes. So I would sit there, I was doing the dishes, and I was watching him, and he was getting more and more upset with him doing his homework. Starting to bang on the table, starting to scream at him.
Oh, he has an anger problem.
Yeah, starting to get frustrated and short with him. And my son was struggling. He didn't know what he was. The more you yell at him, the more he's freaking out. In my mind, I will be honest, there was a kitchen knife there. And I thought I could go. There was a point where he had gotten so aggressive, he had smacked him in the face. He had smacked him hard in the head.
Like, he was like, you didn't do this math problem right.
How old was he at the time? Your son.
I want to say he was about 8 or 9. And so he got hit really hard, and there was a kitchen knife there. And within 3 seconds in my mind, I thought, what if I grab the knife? What if I go at him with the knife? And in that second thought, I thought, I could put myself in danger. I could put my son in danger. He's going to overpower me. There's no way of me getting through that knife at him without him trying to grab it out of my hand. So I decided to not pick it up, and I decided to use my body to protect him. And I turned my back to my ex, and I grabbed my child, and I said, walk away, walk away. And my son had urinated himself, and he's screaming and scared. And, there were times where I wanted to hurt him. There were times where I was mad and I wanted to, like you said, pull out a Glock, and just go at him. But that wasn't the solution. And it was going to put me and my child in danger. And I just wanted to keep us safe. And it was so hard and frustrating, because it was like, he would be such a great parent and then do something like that. And then go through another phase of, I'm a great parent again. And it was just a cycle that I couldn't break. I could not break.
So it sounds like your ex has a mood disorder.
I'm not going to diagnose him. There's plenty of diagnoses I could give him. But
he never seek therapy?
Individual therapy?
Individual, for his own mental illness.
I think he had to go through counseling for after he was going through the Article 15 through the military. But I don't know how it ended or how it worked out. It didn't help. I can say that for sure.
Okay.
It didn't help the situation.
Well, is there anything we didn't mention that you want to mention?
Yeah. There's just, I just want to put it out there's women out there. If you want a free book, if you're going through domestic violence, and, I'm more than happy to send out a free book to women that need it. This book is written for women.
It's
However, yes, it's on Amazon. And I just want to acknowledge that all genders can experience domestic violence. According to the National Coalition of Domestic Violence, there are 10 million people, women and men, that experience domestic violence. And so you're not alone. You are worthy of love. And you can get through this. This is not going to define you. And, there are people out there that love you and want to help you.
Yeah, I was at a friend's house a few years ago, and a male friend and his wife came out of the bedroom, and we're in the kitchen, and she looked at him and she goes, You didn't wash the dishes, bitch. And I was like, holy crap, time for me to go.
You sure punch him too?
It was a wife that said that too. I was like, oh, I gotta go. But anyways, I do understand how tempers flare.
There's another really good relationship book called Love and Respect, and that like men need above anything like respect, and if they don't get respect, they withhold love, and it causes this big crazy cycle.
Withhold sex.
Sex is another thing if you're withholding sex for a long time, or a person.
Are you implying something?
Huh?
Are you implying something?
I'm not saying that. I didn't say that. Your relationship.
That's why Chinatown has so many repeat customers.
I can tell you I've experienced that personally, but no, there's a big disconnect between love and respect. Obviously, if a person goes and says, "Go do the dishes, bitch," in front of a friend, that's very disrespectful. And to a man, will withhold love, or it's just that's a really good book that I think Egrets writes it. But yeah, I've read a lot of relationship books as well after going through some crazy stuff. But you learn a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and I do have a list of books at the end of of the books.
I saw that you had like a reference guide for resources.
I do. There's there's a lot of resources. There is a list of
do you have
books.
A book? Do you have like a list of what?
A book list,
okay, awesome.
And there is a movie list, and there's a things to do around your house to kind of change up your environment. And I think it's movies, music, books are a great tool to help you get through this and understand what's happening with your feelings and body. I don't recommend using drugs. I like the all natural way, but
CBD oils.
I actually don't use very many, but
that's so awesome that you after going through that you have a guide. I mean, have you ever thought about being a counselor or being able to feed into young women or volunteering at the church? Because this is so needed in our modern day society, because we don't learn these skills of how to navigate a relationship or how to avoid those, because domestic violence is so prevalent now, and everything can constitute domestic violence, and you don't even know it. You yell at somebody, or if you throw something or whatever, you don't understand that is the precursors to something escalating or going.
Yeah.
So if you're feeding in, and thank you for writing that book, but I'm so happy, maybe you could, feed
it takes a second of anger to change your life forever.
Yeah.
Like somebody just decided they had something in their hand, and that's the time they got mad and they throw it at the person, not meaning, but it was a response, and then it hits them in the face, cuts their face up. Now they're looking at domestic violence, or they're dead, or they're looking at murder charges or whatever. So it takes a second to change your life.
Oh, there's one case where these guys got together and they had rough sex or something, and the girl liked to be choked, and he choked her and killed her. For the first time, they were friends from high school. They remarried and they married, and then they remarried each other, and then the guy choked her to death, and it was just like, it's so sad, you know what I mean? Like one little.
Okay, so your question was if I was seeking to be a counselor or psychologist. I am not. This was a lot of things that I learned over the course of years. A lot of things that I had regrets and mistakes that I made that I wanted to pass on to the next person. I would love to be a motivational speaker or continue in that path. I'm not sure I could handle as a clinical psychologist or a lot of other people's problems.
That's a lot of emotional.
You need a really strong
bank.
You need a
strong person to handle that. We got one in here
or you need to be really crazy. I'm not sure which.
Crazy or very emotionally stable or strong.
Yes.
But Miss Dominguez, I would like to thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And Mark is going to zoom in on you, and you could tell people how to get this book, the benefits of this book, and a point of contact if you want to give one out.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. My name is Lydia Dominguez. I have a website called Lydia, Lydia Dominguez, DOMINGUEZ.com. My book is also available for purchase on Amazon, Target, and Walmart. And of course, if you are experiencing domestic violence or you have experienced that in the past and would like a free book, please reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram or through my website, and I will send you a book for free and also a audio book for free. And please feel free to reach out if you need any assistance. I have a resources page on my website. You are not alone, and you are worthy of love. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Mike, thank you for coming on the program. Jim Jonas is still gone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jim Jonas, when you coming back, brother? Folks, that's Lydia Dominguez, and she's the author of this book, Turn Your Back.
Don't turn your back.
Don't turn your back. Sorry. Zoom in on that, Mark. Don't turn your back. And it's a book that will help you to find your self-esteem and to give you tools on how to handle abusive situations within your household. This is Steve Sampson and Michael McDonald, Veterans in Politics. Until next time.